What often happens is landlords don't have to send out rent increases too. You're just supposed to pay the correct rent. But when you go to exercise that option, there's usually language in there that says you can exercise this option if you're current on rent. So we've seen they go to exercise the option and they owe $202,000 in back rent because they were supposed to be paying percentage rent.
Most people don't know what's in their lease.
It's scary. You're going in and you're putting in an investment into a system, and you need to know that that system's going to work. I think the ultimate sales machine said that. Pig-headed determination, just keep going and know that what you're offering is of value to the market, be that a sandwich, a software, or a service.
A huge problem that franchisees and franchisors face is tracking the most important details in their commercial leases. It was actually something that was a pain point of mine as a multi-unit franchisee with 2 different leases in 2 different states with 2 different landlords and lease terms. So the cool thing is that there are solutions. And in this episode, I sat down with Landrum, who is the CEO and founder of RAAMP. What they do is simple but powerful. RAAMP protects the cash flow of franchises and commercial property owners by giving them the tools to monitor and understand their leases. Now, Landrum actually shares his screen and gives a live demo of how the software works and what it tracks. It's actually pretty sweet. He also shared a story about how their software saved a franchisee over $400,000 because of what was in their lease terms and making sure that the renewal actually happened, which is pretty wild, and it's a good testimonial to say the least. Now, if you want to buy a franchise in the next 12 months, you should check out my free franchise masterclass at franchiseempire.com. And if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise or resale business, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory, and you can schedule a free call to see what's available in your area. The link is also in the description below. Now, with that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Franchise Empire Show. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, and building your empire doesn't happen overnight. My name is Tarek Johnson, and owning franchises is what helped me go from employee to employer and start building my empire for my family. So this podcast is for you, the empire builders. For those of you who want to build something that stands the test of time. This is for those of you who are crazy enough to believe that you can make the dream in your head come to life. This podcast is all about bringing you real people who are building real empires so you can get inside their mind and heart and get proven strategies and actionable insights that will catapult you to build, grow, and scale your empire. Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Empire Show. I got Landrum. We're going to talk about leases and cool stuff that I think is actually pretty interesting. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So you are the founder, right? And CEO of RAAMP. And so what do you guys do? Like, what problem are you solving in the marketplace?
Well, it's lease management. And so these franchisees, they sign up for a franchise and then they sign up a lease. And oftentimes that lease is for 5 or 10 years. And then they have to renew it. And if they don't let the landlord know, like 180, sometimes 210 days before the end of the lease, they can lose their location. And every lease is different.
Yeah. So, the reason why I find this conversation particularly interesting is, having been a multi-unit franchisee myself, having multiple locations, multiple leases in multiple states, all with different terms, this every time we would have to check something in the lease, I'd have to go digging through the lease every time to see what were the terms, what was it, how does it work, what's our renewal rate, when do we have to renew. One lease has we have to let them know 180 days out, one we have to let them know 270 days out, whatever it is. And so it was like a pain in the butt, actually, and I didn't even know that solutions like this existed, and my franchisor didn't tell me that something like this existed. So, like, what are you guys seeing out there in the marketplace and what, what are the conversations you're having with franchisors and franchisees? Actually, before we get into that, what are some horror stories you've heard about for people that weren't tracking or using your tool?
Okay. Well, I want to backtrack a little bit too because you brought up a good point. You always go to the lease. You're always having to look through the lease and dig through the lease. So the biggest problem that we solved is that right there. You should always go to the lease. The lease is king. And so our software, when you see the information within RAAMP, you click on it and it actually scrolls down to page number 7 in your lease and highlights it for you. So you're always going back to the lease because that's the process that should happen. And if you don't, you run into issues. For instance, we had one group that we were talking to, and they wanted a drive-through because they needed a drive-through. So they're in negotiations. Their options coming up. The head of real estate's all excited. He negotiated it. He sends it out to the landlord. Crickets. For 2 weeks, he didn't hear back for the renewal. After the option period expired, the landlord emailed him back. Oh, actually, you missed the option period. So here's your new terms if you want the drive-through or want to stay on the location. That's one horror story.
Which is that's so shady.
So shady.
But unfortunately, landlord, and I don't want to give a bad name to like commercial landlords because there's a lot of obviously great ones out there, but
yeah,
they, in my experience, like they're there to make money,
yeah.
and the terms are the terms, and they're there to do whatever they got to do to make sure that that their business is their needs are met. And I've seen some shady stuff from commercial landlords in terms of things like that.
Right. Sometimes they don't have a choice. So if you have a really good lease, if you negotiate a really good lease with your landlord, sometimes it ends up being way below market value.
Yeah.
And if you're the landlord there or the property manager, you have to answer to the owners. And when that option period comes up and you have a tenant that has a really favorable option, you're not going to send out a reminder and say, hey, you need to exercise this or you lose it. One of our clients, we have the largest Bojangles franchisee in the country on the platform. They came on in November of 2020. December comes around, but we didn't have to call him. He called us and said, hey, I just got a notification that I'm supposed to renew this lease on Wednesday. Is this real? And so he went into the software, saw it, and sure enough, that option was coming due on the 12th of December. And it was for a 2-acre lot up in North Carolina, and it was about $10,000 below market value. It was from a lease for 1995. So the very first month they were on RAAMP, we saved them $480,000 over the next 5 years.
My goodness. So if he would have missed that deadline of sending the notice to renew, then he would have had to negotiate a brand new market value as opposed to predetermined values or step ups that were negotiated in the lease from 1995.
Yep, because it was a 15-year lease, and then he had 3 5-year option periods on it.
Wow. So one of the things that happened to me, and and this was just like not fully understanding the lease, was we bought our second location. We bought it as a resale, and there was a term in that lease that said that the option to renew was voided upon lease assignment.
That's a nice one too.
And I didn't know that. So we were in that lease for years. Let's see, we bought that in mid 2018. Let's see, I think we were going to renew a couple of years later. And it wasn't until then that the landlord said, hey, by the way, we have to negotiate a whole new at market value, which I thought was interesting. And I think having had a tool that was able to kind of outline some of the terms in an easier way, probably would have been helpful. At least, I don't know, maybe we would have caught it before and, tried to negotiate. I don't know, but most people don't know how to They don't know what's in their lease. My intention with this podcast is to help you build your empire. If you've gotten a single piece of value, one of the best ways you can help me and the podcast is to simply press the like button on YouTube. Lastly, share this podcast. Share it with someone who you know who is an empire builder. Imagine the impact you can have by helping them learn something that can build their business and empire. People will associate the value they got from this information from you, the person that shared it with them, all because you shared it with them. I appreciate you and your support. Let's get back to the episode.
They don't know how to abstract the lease. And that's what we do at RAAMP. We abstract the lease for you. It's a turnkey solution. So when you have that option period, it says what the last day to exercise is, what is the criteria to exercise. What often happens is landlords don't have to send out rent increases too. You're just supposed to pay the correct rent. But when you go to exercise that option, there's usually language in there that says you can exercise this option if you're current on rent. So we've seen they go to exercise the option and they owe $202,000 in back rent because they were supposed to be paying percentage rent, or they were supposed to have rent escalations for the past 3 years that the landlord never told them about. So they do what they're supposed to do to exercise it, but do they have $200-something thousand on hand to exercise it in 1 week or a month?
Wow.
So we prevent problems like that too.
That's interesting. So what are some of the things that your software tracks? Like, give us a breakdown of how the software works overall.
Okay. Well, the first thing, of course, is lease abstraction. The lease is king. It can just completely destroy your revenue, and a lot of franchisees are busy operating their business. They don't need to be worrying about the real estate part. So we take a lease, they upload it directly into RAAMP, and then our team can abstract it for them. And when we do an abstract, it's with that document link too. So every single key data scrolls down into the lease so that you can see it visually. The other thing we track is insurance compliance. If you don't have property insurance or the proper insurance on your employees or your building, your bank account becomes your insurance. And with the Joint Employer Act, if you're a franchisor and your franchisee doesn't have the proper insurance, you could be their bank. You could be their insurance. So we track that. We track licenses. We have a complete file management system that makes sure that all of your information and all your real estate properties and files can be in one centralized location.
Yeah. So so what makes you guys different from some of the other lease management softwares that are out there?
You kind of just touched on it a little bit. Our integrated file management system, because we can collect the documents and we're actually set up for the franchisor. So the franchisor gets a master account, and then each franchisee has their own set system as well, where they can use the full capabilities for ASC 842 compliance, insurance, and leases. And so what that does is it gives that franchisor an added value. Most other softwares, the franchisor has to get their account and the franchisees have to get their own. They're pretty much left out on their own. We integrate everything as a whole network-wide solution for the franchisor.
Yeah, interesting. So the benefit for the franchisor is that it's streamlined and that their franchisees are in communication and lockstep as well.
Yeah, and it also aids them getting the documents. Because we're offering so much service to the franchisees from the get-go, they want to give us the files. They want to be in communication with us because we're helping them. So oftentimes a franchisor is entitled to insurance compliance documentation and leases, and they just don't know how to put a system like this in place effectively. And so we have a full outline of how we do this and a complete proven system. Just like they have a proven franchisor system, we have a proven system to help them manage their leases.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast episode so far. One of the most consistent things that we hear from people that reach out to us is that buying a franchise feels really confusing. There's so many options out there. It's a scary decision. They don't know how to vet or do the due diligence or really narrow down on the right franchise for them, and then they really feel alone in the process. You might be the only one in your family who's ever pursued buying a franchise or being an entrepreneur, or maybe you've tried to start a side hustle before, or other businesses like me. Like before franchising, I was not able to crack the code on entrepreneurship. I'd like to invite you to reach out and work with us. We've helped many clients buy franchises, get them profitable, or by resale businesses that are thriving. I'm talking about highly profitable resales, great value. It's allowed many of our clients to actually quit their job right away and replace their income immediately. So if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise, doing due diligence, vetting it, or resale, then go ahead and go to tarzjohnson.com/consulting, and we're happy to see if we can help. All right, enjoy the rest of the episode. So I'd love to, I think what would make sense is to be able to see a demo. So you're going to show us a little bit about how the software actually works.
So this is a typical lease in RAAMP, and this is a corporate store. And so what you can do is you can click on inspect right here, and what it does is it pulls up, and then it pulls up the information right here. So you can actually see your escalations, see your options right there, and there's no question because you're always going back to the lease. And that's throughout the entire system. And so what they can do is, for franchisors, it's great. We've never had a client miss an option period since 2015. And then that is our metric for success. We stay on top of this, and our team is working alongside of franchisors and franchisees to make sure that that never happens. The franchisees can report sales. They can aid percentage rents, all their charges, all their abstracts, all their files are in one place. They can even have notebooks, so if there's any tasks or additional things. The big benefit for franchisees is they start growing and they need to refinance, they need to be following ASC 842. And so we have a full ASC 842 module. And so the way this works is, it looks complicated, but it's not. Rent concessions come out and everything's done right there for you and laid out for you in a very easy to use way. The great thing about it too is the setup of ASC 842. You put in your effective date, what you want to use for your discount rate, and it goes out to the Treasury Department, pulls in all those complicated figures and gives you weighted averages, and you can see everything directly from the Treasury Department. So overnight, someone can become ASC 842 compliant as soon as we abstract a lease.
Yeah. Now, from a franchisor perspective, so if I'm a franchisor or franchisee, let's look at it from that perspective overall. So if I come into your software, like where am I looking?
Yeah, you see all your franchisees, and then you have your corporate stores too if you have them. There's also an all, so that you can see a global overview of everything. And you have all your month-to-month expirations, all your expiring rents, all your last day to exercise, whether or not you have proper certificate of insurance compliance options. Everything's there for you at a glance.
So if you're a multi-unit franchisee, can you see it in that perspective too? Like if I have 20 stores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see that same thing. And you can track all your files and everything else directly here within the system. And then any file, be it an image such as a driver's license photo or anything, you can put in key dates and track any key dates of expirations and get notifications. You can send it out to your delivery drivers. There's a complete file management system built in. And what's so great is, even if you don't have a scanner handy, we have secure links. So you just take out your phone, you point your phone directly at the camera, at that QR code. It opens up a secure portal, and then you can actually just take pictures or do anything that you want right from your phone without ever having to go search for a scanner or a USB stick that you've been passing around. And there it is. It goes right there.
Wow.
And you can see there we are. Ooh, great picture. And so that's just one of the ways that we help franchisees operate is easy file upload. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, with data rooms as well. So if you need a file from anywhere, they have a data room. They can just drop files directly into it.
Wow, interesting. So that's super cool. So I get a random letter from my landlord, and then boom, I could just scan it, upload it, and that's it. It's done.
Yes, and all this transparency, all these documents, everything is all right there for you. One of the reasons people come to us also is that they want to expand. And I mentioned the ASC 842 compliance. You have to have that if you're going to be refinancing or getting loans for your capital.
But that's for a commercial owner, right? That's not
for franchisees. If franchisees want to refinance and actually get a loan for capital, they're going to need to be following ASC 842. And one of the things they're going to have to do is they're going to have to send out estoppels and waivers to all their landlords. So when Bojangles came on, they were doing a refinance. They had to send out 180 different documents to their landlords.
Oh.
And they would have had to take somebody off of their normal job and fill out this estoppel. And this is straight from a bank. And you can see it. We've put in placeholders right here. And so in RAAMP, all you have to do is you just drag the document into our file management system, release it, boom. It went ahead and created this estoppel for you, and you can go ahead and request signature. I guess I'll be the one signing it. And so with integrated e-signatures, you just go through, and everything has been replaced with all your information, all the way down to your current rent and how many option periods you have left to renew. So it's a great way, and with that Bojangles refinance, we were able to get 75% of their signatures back in 3 weeks. And so they were able to make their closing.
Wow, that's incredible. So how does it work? If I'm a franchisee and I've got a couple of locations or 5 locations, or I actually just met with a guy who owns 8 locations of a home furnishings franchise, and actually we just met and did a whole live video. It's gonna be cool. It's our first time doing like a live interview like that, like in the actual storefront, and that'll so I'm really excited for that video. I think it's gonna be awesome. But he has 8 locations, right? Which is a good bit. So if he came to you and said, "Hey, like I want help tracking this stuff," is he able to like get started, or it's, "Hey, we have to onboard at the franchisor level first," or how does that work?
We welcome franchisees. We always like to partner with the franchisor because there are smaller companies, right? There are smaller franchisees that only have 1 or 2 locations. And for them to implement a system like this, most of them have minimum monthly amounts and everything else. We have a very simple pricing structure. So if a franchisee comes to us and they need their leases abstracted, which is a service that they need to have done anyway, just so that they can know the leases, we charge $150 for the year. That includes the lease abstract, and it includes their RAAMP account for the year. And we will track all amendments. We'll put everything in there for them. Our abstracts come with document link, and we use all US-based lease abstractors. In fact, most of them are here in South Carolina.
$150 for the year?
Yes, per lease.
I mean,
so per location.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, well, you remember Bojangles? We saved them $480,000 the first month. So, I mean, you need to have a system in place. And a lot of people say, "Oh, we're tracking that on Excel, and we're tracking that in Outlook calendars." Well, Outlook calendars, when an employee leaves in their succession, those Outlook calendars often don't transfer over to the new employee. Excel, when you go to the Excel, you'll go to your Excel file, and I bet you what you're going to do is you're going to have to skip on over to Dropbox, and you're going to check the lease. Everyone checks the lease when there's an issue. And so that's why we have the integrated document link so that you can always check the lease with every single data point.
What made you start this business? What were you doing before? What happened for you to go, I want to start this lease management business?
So I was a chef I used to say most of my adult life, but now that I'm in my 40s, I don't think I can say that anymore. But I was a chef for a very long time. And so I started writing financial models for restaurants. And those financial models for these restaurants eventually led into other areas. And so my business partner, he was working with some families with high value, and often those families have real estate. And so he asked for a lease abstraction software. We originally built this in Excel. But then after 2 years of using it, we were like, man, this is a great system. We need to bring this to the cloud. So in 2015 is when we launched it for the cloud. And since then, we've just really found that our system, like a family office, is often how franchisors are structured. You have your franchisor that often has their own stores, and then you have all those franchisees underneath there. And the fact that we can encapsulate their entire network into a system and give the franchisor insights and market data on their own leases and make sure their franchisees are still making those royalty payments, it's a win-win for each. So it's a really exciting way to bring on a franchisor or a franchisee by themselves.
Yeah. So how do you go from starting you're building these things in Excel, you decide you want to start it as a business. What does that journey and process look like to go, okay, I'm doing this thing on the side to, all right, I'm going to get serious and start actually building this as a business? I mean, feels like a pretty significant leap of faith to me.
Well, I'm also the lead developer who wrote the software. And so the largest investment was a lot of time.
Mm,
And so because I wrote the bulk of it over 6 years, that's what we did. We just kept on growing, and we kept on having conversations with tenants, landlords, and it just kept on building until we had a solution that is catered to their needs because they helped build it over the last 10 years.
wow, that's pretty awesome. And I think that's something that that would make you guys unique, right? Where I would imagine some of the other players in this space, they're big corporate companies where you don't get that kind of small business feel and love, right? I think somewhere on your website you put something about like Southern Charm in there. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
about that.
yeah. Yeah, we're definitely you can say Southern Charm. There's definitely that aspect because everyone here loves their job and they love our customers. And so when there's an issue, they're the ones calling. Like we're looking at the reports. You're getting those automated reports, but our own staff is going back and being like, Joe, you need to return my phone call. You need to exercise this option. And that's why since 2015, we've never had a client miss their option to renew. And that's first and foremost of every annual report. This is our KPI. No other system can say that, but because of our staff and our processes that we have in place, just like a franchisor, we're going to keep on hammering that every single year.
Mhm. Yeah. What has been like the biggest, as in like shifting from like an entrepreneur perspective, right? And speaking to other entrepreneurs, because you have this unique perspective where you are an entrepreneur. You know what it's like to start a business. You know what it's like to deal with the adversity of that. Like, what has been one of like the biggest challenges that you've, faced building the business, whether mental, whether strategic, and and how did you overcome it? Like, did you ever feel like, man, this is hard, like wanting to give up, but just pushing through?
Yeah, I mean, always. Like, I mean, that's a struggle that everyone has. Like, why am I doing this? How am I doing this? And I think there is a direct parallel to a franchisee. Um, it's scary. You're going in and you're putting in an investment into a system, and you need to know that that system's going to work. And just like my company, I have systems. I have marketing systems. I have sales systems, and I have to put those in 100% and perfect them and get feedback. And that's exactly what the franchisor does. But a good franchisor works with their franchisees to make that system work. And if that franchisee follows that system, does these steps, and puts their own ability to execute into that, it can be successful. And you have to have pig-headed determination. I think the ultimate sales machine said that. Pig-headed determination. Just keep going and know that what you're offering is of value to the market. Be that a sandwich, a software, or a service.
Boom. Awesome, man. Anything else you want to share about the the software overall before we run?
You mentioned something about us having that Southern charm. One of the things that we really like doing is custom projects. And so we have a full software development team. And so what we often do is we do development projects at cost. And so we just had one of our clients come on. They wanted a notebook feature that allowed them to track certificate of occupancy. But what they wanted is they wanted every single date in their calendar to move with that certificate of occupancy. So if the certificate of occupancy got pushed out 2 weeks, all their 6-week notifications got pushed out, all their 2-week walkthroughs. And so we did that for them, and we did that at cost. It ended up being about a $5,000 project. But they get to use it, and then it's part of the community. Other RAAMP users get to use that same software. We can't do that with every development project, but we really try to look at everything as a community and what can we do to make the software better. Just like you saw that QR file upload, the fact that our calendars links to like Outlook Calendar and Google Calendar and all those, it's all from customer feedback and customer request.
Wow, that's really cool. And then so how does that work? So does that then become a feature as a part of, is that why you guys do it at cost? It becomes a feature for like other folks as well?
Yes, exactly. And sometimes we don't charge. If it's something that goes directly with our development pipeline and our trajectory, we often don't charge. Of course, we take customer feedback and do it. But some of those larger projects that they need done right now to solve an issue, we will do custom software development.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Awesome. Well, Landrum, thanks for coming on, man. I think it's really cool what you're doing, what you're building, and I wish you a lot of success, man.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.